Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. I, Hassan Ahmed, Director Media and Technology, ACFE Oman Chapter, welcome you all on behalf of ACFE Oman Board. We have joined by Mr. Prabhu, our Treasury Director, Mr. Haytham, Director Membership, Mr. Jose Chaku, our Past President, Mr. Mahesh, and Mr. Chetan, our Speaker of the Day. We came up with a very interesting topic, fraud and forensic accounting in 2023. Forensic accounting is a specialized field of accounting that uses accounting, auditing, and investigative skills to investigate financial crimes. Forensic accounting uses their knowledge to identify, interpret, and document financial evidence. They also use their skills to communicate their findings to others, such as law enforcement officials, insurance companies, and courts. Forensic accountants are also often called upon to investigate a variety of financial crimes, including fraud, money laundering, insurance fraud, intellectual property theft, bankruptcy fraud, etc. This was the brief introduction about today's topic. And without any further delay, I will call Mr. Haytham Al Raisi, our Director Membership, to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. Good evening, fellow ACFE members, and to our speaker. So our speaker today is a seasoned CFE member, and he's a pioneer in forensic accounting and fraud investigations from India. He's the first CFE from Mumbai in 1998. He has done first research project for Institute of Chartered Accountants on fraud detection in 1999. He has over 38 years of experience of professional audit experience. He also has authored his first audio-visual book on forensic accounting. And he also has had new theory in that book called Theory of Inverse Logic in the audio-visual book. He also trains and conducts training for ICA on forensic accounting. He has conducted in 2009 and again in 2012 in Hyderabad in a specialization area of internal audit, fraud detection, and investigation. In terms of his qualification, he's a fellow chartered accountant from Institute of Chartered Accountants, India. He's a certified fraud examiner. He's a certified internal auditor and a certified information and system auditor. Today, our speaker, Chetan Dalal, will be talking about forensic accounting and fraud investigations. Without taking much of the time, let's introduce and welcome our speaker to the virtual stage, Mr. Chetan Dalal. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I share my screen, please? Can you help me to share it?
Sure.
Can he give me the link to share the screen?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, can you see my screen now? Okay. Okay, so I presume you can see my screen, and this is the first slide. Please, since I cannot see any of you, if somebody can say yes, then I'll start.
You can
Yes.
start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Oman chapter, everybody, all the committee members, and all the people who have logged in to participate in today's webinar on fraud and forensic accounting 2023. It's a pleasure and it's a privilege to be here with you all. And I would like to, of course, express my gratitude for all the nice words that have been said by Mr. Haytham about what I am and what are my qualifications. But in all humility, I must say that I'm here not so much as an expert, but more to share my experiences and hope that any of these experiences would be of use to you in your future endeavors and may help you to tackle situations more forcefully and more penetratively. So with this, let me just begin start this session with a small thing about what Abraham Lincoln had said. Abraham Lincoln had said that you can fool some, maybe one or two persons all the time. You can fool maybe all the people for some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. And one of the major reasons is because forensic accounting can't really see through a lot of misdeeds and wrongdoings. In fact, fraud and forensic accounting, maybe if you'd asked me 25 years ago, I don't think anybody would have really known that such a service also even exists. But now in 2023, the world has changed, and fraud and forensic accounting service is a very vibrant service required all over the world. And you have heard of scams running into billions and billions of dollars across the world, where it is the expertise which comes from fraud and forensic accounting which is of importance. Now, let's just start this session with a simple thing about thinking differently. If we want to do any kind of forensic accounting or any kind of investigation, in fact, the most important thing is to be able to think differently, to think out of the box, to keep an open mind, and to see situations and to be able to adapt. You know, if your outlook is wider, if you're able to think beyond the normal things that you are actually doing, your ability to do investigations or forensic assignments will be significantly greater. In fact, I may even take the liberty of adding that any kind of work that you may be doing, whether you're an auditor, consultant, tax consultant, or whatever, businessman, if you keep this trait of doing things out of the box and widening your outlook, it will be definitely very rewarding. And that reminds me of a fish in Japan called the koi fish. I don't know if any of you have heard it, but it has a typical characteristic. If a koi fish, this is what I'm told, if a koi fish is kept in a small fish aquarium at home, it will grow to a size of about 2 to 3 inches so that it can move around in that particular aquarium. But if you put it in a bathtub and let it remain there, it will grow about maybe 2 feet of size because it can move around in a bathtub with that size. And if you can put it in a lake or a river, it will grow even bigger than that. Now, this has a very important message for all of us, that we are actually limited by our environment and what we perceive the environment to be. If we let our minds go beyond that, to go out of the limitations that appear to be there, friends, I can assure you that you will grow, you will think, you will be exponentially more capable than what you already may be. So that is why, friends, one of the central themes in today's talk, which I'm going to show several scenarios and cases. If we keep an open mind and think differently, you'll be able to achieve and accomplish much, much more. But one thing, friends, I just wish that all of you remember that, I'm going to show a lot of cases or some documents or some film or some details. These are all for classroom purposes and for academics. They're not descriptions of any fraud anywhere by any entity, organization, individual, or any person. This is just for demonstration. And in case there is any resemblance to any entity who's there in reality, which is reflected here, it is purely accidental, imaginary, or for demonstration purposes. There is no implication of fraud or any entity reference anywhere. Now, the agenda that I would like to complete, depending on, of course, how much I'm able to complete in each section of the agenda, is as follows. First, of course, I want you to bring yourself to the world of fraud. I'm going to open a window where I'm going to talk about what kind of frauds happen, what are the investigators' traits, skill sets that are required, just to bring you into this world, because many of us sometimes don't even know the enormity and the extent of fraud that really takes place. Then I want to talk about symptoms or indicators which are in fraud jargon referred to as red flags. Red flags are signs of imminent danger. So what are these red flags which are very important to all investigators? We'll be talking a little bit about that. And in order to spot red flags, we'll also talk about some of the modernized or the new tools which are available apart from the normal knack and the normal traits which an investigator can develop. The fourth thing that we are going to talk about is how can we perform investigations penetratively. These are the various areas which I would like to talk about to discuss, and as far as possible we'll try to make it practical. Everything will be based on some experiences that we have had, some things which happen in day-to-day scenarios and which you can relate to reality. So this, friends, is the agenda that we have for today. Let's look at the first thing, fraud and window to the world of fraud. Now, friends, in order to make you aware of the seriousness of this capture of fraud, I'm going to show you now in the next 15 to 20 seconds a series of different kinds of documents, screenshots, exhibits, and records, data, which we all see in our everyday life. And when you see them, I'll probably stop at each exhibit that I'm showing for about maybe 5 to 6 seconds. Just have a look at it, and then we'll talk about that later. So let's start with this. What you see now on the screen is a screenshot of some ERP or SAP data. Nowadays, with all these ERP systems like SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, and all that, these are the different kinds of big systems that we have, and this is what a typical snapshot of a screen that you have when you are accessing this data. So this is one. Then this is a very simple thing, a boarding pass. I'm sure all of you would have traveled and you would have taken a boarding pass. So this is a typical boarding pass that you see on the screen. Then this is an Excel sheet. So what you see over here is that there is an Excel sheet which shows that there is some analysis which has been done and which can be used for further examination. Then what you see here is a JPG file. Everybody knows that it's a JPG or a PNG file is a picture file. It's a very simple file that I've just downloaded from the internet. Then this is something where we have now, if you have, let's say, a KYC, every bank, every insurance company, and I'm sure the Central Bank of Oman must be, insisting that, proper KYC details be kept by all banks, insurance companies, share brokers to ensure that details of all the investors, account holders, policy holders is taken. And below is one such example of a folder which contains the pictures or photographs of such customers of bank, of clients of banks. Now you see on the screen a document which is very often seen. It is a will. A person, when he wants to give his inheritance to any beneficiary, or when he wants to leave behind a legacy, he makes a will like this. So this is a document which bankers sometimes come across. You can find documents like title deeds, which could be very old. You can find documents which are contracts, and so on and so forth. So this is a typical will that we see here. This is what we see, a typical CCTV footage. This is there in most banks, insurance companies, and so on. Then this is another Excel sheet which shows some comparative statements of analysis of expenses for 2 months. So this is also something which is very common and which we come across on a day-to-day basis. Again, this is the same thing. This is a balance confirmation from a bank, which is also required by many audit companies when they do the final year-end audits. This is a receipt. In those days when a lot of cash was being paid, this is a typical receipt which was paid. Now, when you look at all these exhibits which I showed you one by one, don't they all look genuine? I'm sure all of you, when you saw that, they said, what is Mr. Dalal showing us? They are all simple day-to-day routine documents. But friends, here's the catch. Each and every one of those exhibits which I showed in the last 1.5 or 2 minutes, friends, all of them were connected with fraud in some way or the other. Either they were fraudulent themselves, or they were used to perpetrate a fraud, or that there was something in them which was manipulative in nature. Now, friends, like you, even I whenever we did any investigations in the concerned areas that related to these documents, me and my team, when we did that, initially we also, exactly the way you felt, we also felt that all these documents were very simple, routine, and perfectly acceptable. But having developed certain perception skill sets, certain abilities to be able to spot red flags, we were able to find the kind of wrongdoing that was existing in most of these documents. So friends, let us get on with this. So this is what, these are the examples where they appear to be absolutely innocent, straightforward, and quite innocuous, but actually these were all relating to massive fraud. Now let us look at this world of fraud investigation. Now, fraud investigation is all about examination and collection of evidence, basically to prove or disprove a theory. That means if there is any suspicion of something wrong, then what we as an investigator would do is to collect any evidence which either proves that what has been suspected is true, or it dispels that suspicion that, okay, there was no such reason to believe that such and such a fraud or wrongdoing took place. This is what is simple fraud investigation, maybe for management or for companies or for business owners. But when it is required to be placed before a court of law, when it is required to be used to prove something in legal terms before a judge, then this whole process is termed as forensic accounting, because that is what relates to a court of law. And in order to perform either a fraud investigation or a forensic accounting, the following skill sets are required. One is, of course, to be able to understand what bookkeeping and accounting is all about. The second thing is to understand what is auditing. And the third thing is a little more investigating, or in simpler words, application of common sense and logic. Now, this sometimes is missed out even by the best of people when they do accounting and auditing, because of various reasons. It could be pressures of time, it could be certain disclosure requirements, it could be some different objectives which were there. But when you look at data, when you apply your mind and you apply some logic and common sense, sometimes you realize that what you felt was a particular conclusion actually was quite the opposite. And of course, I'll demonstrate this during the course of this talk. Now, what are the traits that are required for anybody to become a good forensic auditor or a good fraud investigator? There is research where there are several such traits, but the two topmost issues which I would recommend, or which I feel that we should develop, one is what we call distrust the obvious. Like, don't believe what your eyes tell you. Try to apply some more tests to believe, or to come to a conclusion that what you're seeing is indeed true. And for that, you apply what we call a 3D vision. That means if you get information from one source, do not conclude that such and such is the case unless and until you get a corroborative piece of evidence or confirmation from at least one more source of information or multiple sources of information. Only then should you reach the conclusion that you want to reach. Let me give you an example with a visual. Now, if you see, and I'm sure that all those people who are watching, when they see this particular picture on the screen, what they see is a series of several lines slanting in different directions, and in between there are some squares which are black colored, which are colored in black, and these lines are slanting in multiple different directions, and they seem to have no pattern. Am I right? I'm sure most of you will agree with me. Now, actually, friends, the reality is, and this is the sad truth, that your eyes are telling you something which is false. These lines, however, whatever your brain may tell you, whatever your eyes may tell you, these lines are perfectly parallel. They're equidistant from each other. They are not slanting in any direction. The reason is that the black color, friends, when it touches our mind, it clouds our judgment. This is one of the basic reasons. When our judgment is clouded, when our mind is filled with black things, and when this black thing actually represents negative emotions, things like hatred, anger, jealousy, dislike, These are emotions which tend to cripple your mind, and the black color symbolizes those negative emotions, and you tend to see a picture which gives you a misleading information. Now, supposing you get rid of the black color, which I will do shortly, you will find that all the lines are perfectly parallel because your brain is not clouded by the judgment. Have a look at this. I've removed the black color from there. Now, friends, when you see this, you will find that the lines are absolutely parallel. So what has happened? Because your judgment is not clouded anymore. If I put the black color again, you will once again find that the lines are slanting in different ways. Now, friends, this particular visual example I have given you purely for you to understand that sometimes you feel that, yes, I've seen this myself. This was the case. This is the real thing, but it may not be the case. It is always desirable or better to get the information corroborated by different sources, wherever possible, of course. In this, let me give you an example of this distrust the obvious. There was a very, and this relates to a thing which it was so serious. There was one very big international irrigation dam project engineering company. It was all glitter and gloss, and people were, commending it in a big way. Billions of dollars were being, used in the business operations. So there were some very important things which were seen by people across, that there were some excellent directors, senior employees, good management, good corporate governance. So this was one of the things that was seen. This was perceived. Their inventories of steel, because it was a very big project, was about $250 million at the site. There was supposed to be high-tech subsidiaries and associates. The steel, that is a raw material steel purchases, ran into millions of dollars, and there were purchases of sophisticated machines. So when you see all this, friends, it gives you an impression that this was a fantastic and a very big and a very profitable and a very massive company. But the reality was something like this. The senior directors and the senior employees were actually made sweepers and uneducated people. The inventories were completely fictitious because the storage capacity at that dam project where these raw materials were kept was less than 10% of what the books showed. The so-called high-tech subsidiaries and associates were nothing but shell companies which were used to siphon out funds. Steel, it was ridiculous to believe that the transport bills for getting steel into the place where they were supposed to be stored was done on two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Can you imagine tons and tons of steel being taken in two-wheelers and three-wheelers? And when the purchases of sophisticated machines was done through a forensic audit, it revealed that many of the payments were made for machines with the same serial numbers. So there were duplicate invoices or there were replicated invoices where huge amount of monies were actually filtered out, which was siphoned out. So when you see something in a certain way, such may not be the case. It's only when you take information from various sources that the reality actually dawns on you. Now, this was a major scam of over $1 billion US, and it is also there on the internet. But this is just something that I wanted to explain to you to give you the enormity of the kind of issues and how we get misled by what we see. Now, in this, one of the important things for any investigator is to understand this process of identification of red flags. Now, what are red flags, friends? Red flags are nothing but symptoms or indicators of some wrongdoing, some mischief, some kind of discrepancy, or something which could be wrong. So just for an understanding, I have divided the red flags into two parts. First is on a macro level, like let's say if you have some big organizations like your Muscat Securities Exchange, or if you have a state auditing institution, all these big regulators, they may be looking at data at a macro level. Like say, for example, in stock exchanges and security market, you can have daily trade data of listed companies. Now, this trade data, sometimes if you want to examine the last 1 year's data or data for a particular period, you want to see trade data, you want to see the margin data, you want to see high, lows, profits, this, that. How if you're a regulator, if you're a, let's say in the central bank or the securities market, how would you really analyze this data? So for this purpose, there is a very, very useful mathematical theorem, and it is also referred to as Benford's law. Now, if we are able to understand Benford's law, which is very simple, mind you friends, I must tell you it is one of the simplest things to use, but it just needs first an initial understanding of what it's about. It will help you to go to that part of the data population where there could be fraud or errors. Otherwise, today, when you take up a sample check, when you take up any data for auditing, it's a matter of luck. You only take maybe certain, with using certain criteria as maybe items which are more than a certain materiality factor, or with a certain industries, or with some kind of criteria which doesn't necessarily point out to a possibility of fraud or error. But Benford's law is one such law, and it is the only mathematical or scientific way in which fraud can actually be. There's a 68 to 70% chance that you might be able to find fraud in this. Suppose your state audit institution, it is examining an audit population. So it can also use Benford's law, or there is one more tool, that a mathematical tool again, which is called the relative size factor, in short RSF. These both Benford's law and RSF can help to identify outliers. So maybe as I was talking to some of your ACFE committee members, if we are going to have a workshop, we can actually show you hands-on how some populations can be audited, how we can find out the fraud in even 1 million transactions, and even in complicated data sets. The only thing is a little understanding of how this Benford's law works and what this RSF is all that is required. But these are some of the best ways to identify red flags. On a micro level, like these are something that when you're looking at data at a certain level of the regulators, but let's say you are doing an investigation or an audit in individual entities. Now, in the individual entities, there are lots of red flags. Like when you find that certain senior people, like maybe very high level heads of businesses, they have close nexus with suppliers, customers, and third parties. This is one of the biggest red flags, because it could mean that there is some corrupt practice which could be going on. Similarly, there could be instances where details, records, information is missing. Now, sometimes there could be a natural reason for something that is missing, but it has to be really examined to see whether there is a genuine reason why information is missing or whether it has been suppressed. And obviously, if it is suppressed, it's very clear that there could be something that is wrong. Normal discrepancies that you see, such as shortages in inventories, cash, assets, these, if they are routine and small and not so very material, they can be dismissed because it is understandable. But sometimes if there are persistent chronic shortages, if there are chronic even excesses, or if there are huge amounts of gaps, these are definite indications that all is not well. Too much of power and authority in one or a few individuals. This is, friends, you can say one of the surest reasons for fraud to take place. Power always corrupts, and when there is too much of power given to one or a few people, it is bound to lead to misuse. So these situations are those situations where it's a situation which shows a red flag as the environmental red flag. And mismatch between standard of living and known sources of income. A person who may have, let's say, a certain limited source of income, but if he is making investments in millions of dollars and gambling and races and all that, you can rest assured, you can be sure that the person is dabbling into something that is no good. And if there is any kind of gap in the bookkeeping, reconciliations, accounts, or any place where you feel that something is in areas, friends, that is one of the best thriving places, and it fosters fraud. So these are just some examples which I gave you, but if you do a little more research on this, you'll find lots and lots of different kinds of red flags which you may keep in mind whenever any examination of data, whenever any investigation, whenever any whistleblower complaint, whenever any important things is being reviewed, because this is the basis on which any kind of fraud can be caught in the early stages and nipped there itself. Now, The most important question is how does one spot red flags? I've already explained that we have two mathematical theorems. One is the Benford's law, the second is RSF. But let's look at the process overall. Okay, what is the real requirement to spot red flags? Now, first and very important thing is to do constant research and get or develop tools. See, in today's world, the fraudsters also adapt. They keep on changing. You know, there is a very apt observation made by Charles Darwin. Everybody must have heard of Charles Darwin. Now, Charles Darwin is a person who has talked a lot about species, their evolution, and he has given us a lot of information about that. According to him, it is believed that it is not that species which is the fittest which really survives in the long run. It is also not that species which is the most intelligent which survives in the long run, but it is that species which adapts to the changing times, the changing environment. That species survives the longest. And that, friends, is applicable to all of us also, whether we are auditors, consultants, forensic accountants, whatever we need. That's why I started in the beginning to say that we have to keep an open mind, we have to keep an open outlook, and we have to think out of the box. So adapting and getting new tools, do research, this is very, very important. Now, what is also important is we need to develop the skill set of identifying the thinking pattern of a thief. And this can best be achieved by performing what we call a walkthrough test in whichever process we are examining. That means let's say, supposing you are examining something where there is a lot of corrupt practice in purchases, or in some specific area where there is a suspicion that something is going wrong. The entire process in which the purchases are effected, how the orders are raised, how they are executed, how they are received, how they are paid, all this one should actually do a walkthrough by going right from the beginning to the end, seeing if they had to raise a PO, if they had to raise a dispatch note, if they had to accept the material, if they had to see the quality check, how it would be done. When you do a walkthrough test, that is putting yourself in the shoes of the person who's supposed to be doing it, then your thinking pattern will also start identifying what a thief could possibly do. How could he breach a control? How could he find some way to make money or to beat the system? And this is, friends, very, very, very important. In many of our cases, we actually do this and we find that the results are phenomenal. And one thing which is very important is that this skill set of learning how to spot red flags, is not something that one can do in maybe a couple of months of research and be fully prepared. Yes, you can start doing and you'll have good results, but you need to keep a library of all the fraud symptoms and all the different kinds of examples and illustrations that you have noticed during your entire career, because once you keep that, you'll realize that many of them do get repeated, and you'll get the knack of spotting them faster and being able to perform a more penetrative investigation. Now, one of the things which I've seen very often, which is lacking, is that people go for what we call short-term success. There's a very nice anecdote which I read somewhere, or a nice story, is that there was a carpet in an office and there was a lump at some place. So the man who was there in the office, he went and stomped on that place where there was a lump. So that lump went down, but unfortunately that lump came up somewhere else. So he went over there to that part of the carpet where that lump was there, and once again he stomped on it. That lump settled down, but once again the lump came somewhere else. And in this manner, he tried to stomp and iron out the lumps several times. After a few such attempts, what happened was a small little snake slithered out from under the carpet and went away. And that is what was causing the lump. So his effort of trying to remove that lump by just stomping on it was a waste of time. All that he had to do was search, open the carpet, and the snake would have gone out on its own. So very often we also do things like this. We just take a shortcut solution, but a root or a deep root cause analysis is missed out, and that is why you do not spot these red flags. So these are some of the simple tips along with the Benford's law and RSF, which I can give you to be able to tackle any situation, whether it is large data, whether it is massive data, whether it is the small companies data, whether it is a typical situation data. You can always decide which approach to use. And if you follow any of these things that I've discussed just now, you will be in a position to identify red flags quite successfully. Now let's look at some of the tools, and I want to show you some actual tools which I have myself researched during the last few years and how they can help you in performing the initial investigations. So let's just see some of the tools that we have. Now, when I said tools, I told you that constant research, and in today's world, we are so lucky that we have a tool like the internet, which can also facilitate us to find out more tools and to find out red flags which could actually be very evident with those tools. Supposing, let's say, your Central Bank of Oman, which is the regulator for all banks, says and tells the banks and insurance companies and finance companies that because nowadays money laundering is happening in such a big way, let us make sure that all our KYC, that is know your client, that all the details of the clients are spick and span, and that we don't have any major problem. You know, one of the easiest ways to do money laundering is when you have spurious or fictitious KYCs, like the same person can have various accounts in different banks under different names, and then he may deposit money, transfer money from one place to another, and these kind of things, money laundering activities. So good KYCs are sometimes very important so that you remove all the riffraff and the people who could be mules or who could be doing something wrong in money lending. Now, how, for example, if you want to just, I'm giving a simple case that suppose if any bank wants to find out if there are any duplicate accounts or multiple accounts which have been opened by the same person. Now let's look at it. Let's look at the KYC. Now, KYC data for each customer normally consists of his name, address proof, either his passport number or some kind of similar evidence for proving his address, his email address, his telephone, other details. Now, these are some of the things that are usually obligatory for all, let's say, bank accounts to be opened or insurance policies to be taken or investors in a broker's firm and so on. Along with this, what is also most important is that the photographs of each of the account holders or the investors has also to be given to the authority who wants to keep track of the KYC. Now, if you notice, I have kept the photographs in a red font while the other first 7 items are in black. Now, what is it? Because there is a difference between the two. If you want to really verify and if you want to find out whether there could be any duplicates between items 1 to 7, it is very easily done. You can have, there are many audit softwares available in the market, but even if you don't have an audit software, even if you are able to import your data into an Excel sheet, there are ways and means of finding out anomalies like duplicates or similarities or various other queries which you can do by doing an analysis of this data, because this is ultimately numeric or text data. But what about photographs? Today, if I am a perpetrator of fraud and I want to do money laundering, I can probably try and do a lot of things by giving you a fictitious passport, fictitious address proof, a fictitious name, address, everything, and maybe give you some documents to prove that, and I may be able to open multiple accounts. But I can't change my face because I have to give the photograph to the authority concerned. Now, we can check, as I said, for items 1 to 7, there are audit software tools which are available which can show you that. But photographs, it's very difficult, friends. But now there are tools available. That's why when I started thinking about it, I started doing some research on the internet and I found that there are tools available. Now let's say, for example, this is actually it's from my own computer, but let's presume that these are some photographs which are there in a bank. Let's say there are some 1,000 such photographs. They are actually a part of the KYC. Let's say they are in a folder called PIC, and these are the different account holders of or clients of the bank. Now, even if you were to take, let's say, only some 50 such photographs, and if I were to ask you, friends, can you find out if there is any duplicate, you will not be able to do so. Therefore, you have to use some tool to find out whether there is something like that. So when I did that research, I found that there was a tool. If you can see on the screen, there is this tool called Visual Similarity Duplicate Image Finder Pro 6.7.01. So I saw this tool. It was, I could pay a very, very nominal price for that tool, and I could download it. Now, friends, here I'm not advertising, or I'm not saying that you should use this tool. I am on the contrary saying that this is one of the results that I found when I did some research of some tools, which whether they were available to find out whether there could be a way or a process to identify duplicate images or duplicate pictures. That is the important thing. The intention was to do research to find out whether you can catch duplicates and in pictures as well. So I found this is one of the many programs, and this is a very old one. I'm sure there are even better and new ones. So don't go by the name, but go by the characteristics or the features that this offers. You can detect duplicate photographs or even similar photographs by using this tool. So I'll just show you. I downloaded this, and what you see now on the screen, what you see over here is the screenshot when you have installed this particular program and you want to perform some operation of checking duplicates. It's very simple. It's very similar to something like your Excel or Word file. So you have all those icons on the top. Now, in this, towards the right, if you can see over here, I put a small arrow here. The program requires you to identify the folder where you have all the picture data. Now we are talking of pictures. So if you remember, I had shown you, I'll go back to that. This was in a folder called PIC, as I had shown you. So this particular folder is to be identified here. You have to browse and you will be able to come to this part. So this folder, once you use this add folder, it will come and stay and rest in this part of the program. So now the browser of this particular application has been told that PIC file folder has some pictures. Okay. Now the next thing that you have to do is you have to find out or identify the extent of similarity that you want. If you see on this right hand bottom corner, we have identified 60%. Now you may ask me, why have you not asked for 100%? Yes, I can ask for 100% also. But you see, if I have taken two different photographs at slightly two different times or in two different locations, though my face will be the same, it will be similar. It will not be an exact replicate. So it is better to give a slightly lesser degree of similarity, and we can go down to as much as 50%, but I took an approximate figure of 60%. You can go to 65, 70, 80. It's completely your choice. And I just said, okay, let me see whether we can get any duplicates which have 60% similar resemblance. And then, friends, simple. You just add, or you see the green arrow at the bottom, you just click on it. Friends, in a matter of seconds, when you're, let's say, 50 or 100 photographs, in a matter of seconds, the program will give you the results something like this. These are the results. Now it will just identify what you see on the central part of the program is all those cases where there are some results of some different percentages at which there is a resemblance. Some can be less than 50% and more, but it has at the bottom, can you see that there is an identification of somebody who has got 3 different photographs for 3 different names. Now you can see the very first one is slightly with a blue background. The second one is of a white background, which is slightly different from the third one. As you can see, the third one has a different colored dress, which is black colored, which is not the same that is there in this. Now, the computer has been able to identify 3 different photographs which are very similar, probably the same, and this becomes one of the easiest ways. This is your first red flag. So you have to see the KYCs given by all these 3 people, and then you can make further inquiries, further investigations to determine whether it is indeed the same person or there are 3 people who are having a similar face and they are genuine KYCs. But this is possible. You are able to go to that part of the photographs, the list of photographs where there is a similarity. Now, how was this possible? Is it this program that I'm talking about? No. What is important is the research behind it. When you have a certain problem, when you have a certain objective in front of you, what is important is that you must learn to think out of the box and see what can be done to find out. Many people will just say that photographs, how are we able to find duplicates? We can do something on the text data or the numeric data. But no, if you think, is there something possible? There is a very good chance that you may find something which will give you results. So friends, this was one tool which I wanted to show you. Let's take another tool. Now, very many cases you have huge expenses of air travel claims and all that, which are usually supported by a boarding pass. Now here, let's say this is a typical boarding pass which is provided. Now, we can even do an audit of these boarding passes through the QR codes. Now, how do we do this? Actually, friends, if you can download on your cell phone a very simple app, there is this QR code scanner. Now, this is one of the many apps which are available, but let's say you have downloaded this. Now, this QR code scanner is an app which enables you to read the data on a QR code. As simple as that. It is that kind of a device which helps you to understand what the code is talking about. So what you do is, once you've downloaded it, it comes, as you can see in the white square. This is the kind of the icon that comes on your cell phone. When you place this in front of the boarding pass and you put it on, this is the way it will start examining that QR code. It will try to read it. In fact, why try? It will actually read it, and within a few seconds it will give you the details that are there. So now, as you can see, this is the detail which comes up, which flashes when you have scanned this QR code. And when you compare it with the boarding pass, you find that the name is different. Then you realize that this has been a doctored boarding pass and this is fraud. Now, simple as that. You've just taken a tool, you've just taken a QR code scanner. Again, it is at your fingertips. It happens in a matter of seconds. But we have to start learning, friends. We have to start applying these different ways and different methods to think what a fraudster or a perpetrator of fraud could possibly do, and what can we do in order to find whether something could be wrong. Now, I want to show you this picture. Now, I'm sure that when you all see this picture, okay, what kind of a file is this? Yes, it's a JPG file. It's a PNG file. It's a picture file. It's a different file from a Word doc or whatever. Now, very often, sometimes somebody sends us some photographs or pictures like this, and they come through mail or through WhatsApp or some other different social media that you may be using. Now, do you feel that this is an innocent picture file? Friends, no. As the heading on this particular slide says, there is a kind of fraud which is known or referred to as steganography. The steganography means that it is a kind of a device which is used to hide data in innocent looking data. Like, say, for example, here you have an innocent picture file of a mosque, but actually this file could contain a Trojan horse, like some Excel sheet could be there inside. Yes, friends, you heard that correctly. It is possible to hide a file within a file. There are many programs which are available on the internet. Many, I would say hundreds of such programs which help you to do this. There is a program some years ago I had downloaded on my computer. It was called Our Secret, spelled as OURSECRET. For those of you who want, you can just note this down, and if it is still available on the internet, you can try it. With this program, friends, you can actually hide some data in a file, or you can open some file to find out whether there is any hidden data. Now, how does this happen? These programs are based on certain algorithms whereby they are able to merge two files. But what happens is that only the carrier file, like in this particular case, this MOS picture file was the carrier file, and that Excel sheet which you saw, which you can see, which is peeping out from there inside, is the hidden file or the smuggled file. So you have to identify the picture on top as the carrier file, and you have to identify that Excel sheet as the file to be hidden. Then you have to leave it to the program. The program does the rest, and very soon you will be given this file, which is the picture, which actually has this particular sheet inside. And this can come in and go through your emails, irrespective of the amount of firewalls, security, IT blocks that you may have, because you can always receive an email from anywhere. And this is very easily sent by using an email sent program. That means you just send this by attaching a file in an email. Friends, the seriousness of this is that you can attach any file in any file. That means you can attach in a picture file, you can attach a doc file, that is a Word file, you can attach an Excel file, you can attach a PDF file, you can attach an audio file. Yes, friends, you can attach an audio file. Yes, you can attach a video file as well. And the converse of that is also true, that in any video file or any audio file or any PDF file or in any Excel file, you can attach any of the other files. That means that star, you can attach any file in any file. Now, this is something which is so serious that, let's say, for example, if you are in a bank, you're working in a bank, or let's say you're working for central bank, there will be lots of classified data. So you can just send out a small picture or receive a small picture from somewhere, attach this file using this particular steganographic program and send it somewhere. And the systems administrator, the systems control, or whatever information system blocks that you have, they will only see this PNG file. They will not know that there is a file which is actually being carried inside. And there is a level of passwords also available, so that it's difficult for somebody to remove the file. But in any case, irrespective of the password, it is also very, very difficult to determine whether a file could be a steganographic file, because there are multiple programs which are available, multiple applications which are available on the internet, where you will not be able to know which application has been used to hide a file. And once you see all the files that are there, let's say on a person who's absconding, you will have no way to know whether any particular file could be a steganographic file. In this, friends, I have no solution for you. I am only giving you a problem, but I'm making a problem visible to you, that this is what really happens. So these are some of the things, or some of the frauds that do happen. Let's look at some methods and techniques for performing penetrative investigations. Now, this is something which is very important. Okay. Now, I would like to take the very simple ones first. That is juxtaposition test. What is this juxtaposition test? I'll explain to you. And I'll also explain to you what are these tests of reasonableness, tests of impossibility. Benford's law, RSF, space-time dimensions. These are some of the very few methods which we have developed with over the last 30, 40 years. And we would say that there has been a reasonable rate of success in finding out wrongdoing using some of these methods. So let me explain a few so that you have some idea of what and where we were able to use them. Now, what exactly is this juxtaposition test? Now, friends, since many of you could be from banks, one of the things is that when a bank has, let's say, a physical RTGS form or a physical check, how does it pass that check? It does a signature verification. So what it does is, if there's a signature on a check, it is compared with the specimen signature. Like, let's say, what you see on the right is the specimen signature which has been collected by a bank, and let's say on a document, this is the signature. you can make out that you don't need to be a handwriting expert to understand that there is a major difference between the two, and it is necessary to inquire with the account holder whether this was indeed a signature. So how was this possible? Yes, you're right. It was possible because this was juxtaposed. Juxtapose means, in simple English language, to place side by side for comparison. Now, friends, do you think that juxtaposition should be restricted only to some simple things like maybe testing of signatures? No, friends, it can be done in a in a series of different ways. Okay. Now you can do it to compare two invoices. Like two invoices could have the same kind of information, the same kind of appearance, but they could be different. Like, let's say, for example, there are some transport bills. Again, I've just taken some things from the net and I've just put this. Please do not feel that if there is indeed this transporter available, there is no indication to say that he or somebody else has been involved in a fraud. This is just for academic purposes. Now, supposing you see this particular transport. Now, when you compare two different invoices, you find that there is something that is wrong. Now here, what you see that this word general has come in, but there is no general word over here. So there you realize that this is something which is different. Then here you see that this particular symbol is there on the left side, whereas over here it is on the right side. Then you see another thing, that here what you see is the way the serial number has been printed, and the way it is printed on the right side, there is a big difference. So this is something which gives you an idea that the two documents are different, and it is worth inquiring whether there is any scope of some manipulation which has been done to copy one document from the other. So by doing these juxtaposition tests on invoices, documents, papers, you will sometimes come across things which could be grossly wrong. Now, we extended this juxtaposition test to even a higher level, that is to, let's say, CCTVs or pictures. Now, nowadays, CCTVs are very important. Now, if you just see this, the one on the right, both of them are supposed to be done by a CCTV footage, that is through fixed cameras. The one on the right, if it was moving up and down, it means that this was not recorded from a CCTV. So this was an artificially done recording of a particular file, basically to support a false or an orchestrated claim. Now, this was possible only when you realize that this was actually moving up and down. Now, just imagine, friends, if a CCTV camera is affixed on top, can it move up and down like this? Like if you see this one over here, it will not move like this. See, it's rock steady. Now this, even with all the digital revolution and technology, sometimes the way you audit even CCTVs can make a big difference. Therefore, it is very important. Once again, friends, I keep mentioning that it is important to have an open mind. The digital revolution will bring about different kinds of evidence. Like this kind of CCTV footages wouldn't have been there some 20-30 years ago. But now that they have come, how to examine these also, friends, is very important. And day by day, this is, of course, we have been able to check this by actually manually seeing some of these CCTV footages, but it is possible that there may be tools which are available to give you information like this. There may be some other techniques and methods which may be available to show that these could be also some kind of red flags which you can look out for. But the most important thing, friends, is to be able to adapt to the given new scenarios. If you have to look at CCTV footages, think how can a perpetrator of a fraud do something that is wrong. Similarly, even two pictures, you have to see, and when you compare two pictures, you will find that there can be some red flags, some clues that you can get. So friends, this juxtaposition test is a test which we developed over the last 2 decades, and we found that it has had phenomenal use in various kinds of scenarios, and it has led to a lot of fraud being detected. Now, friends, I'm going to talk about another method which we are looking at. Let me just look at what I said. There are two tests: test of reasonableness or test of impossibility. Okay, now what is this reasonableness? Now, when you say something, okay, if a person is let's say, going to if a person is unwell, okay, and he has given some medical bills for his for claiming them from the company. Now, if he is a male member, he cannot give anything which is relating to, let's say, a birth control pill or some kind of a pregnancy test or some other kind of things. This is absurd or ridiculous. So there is certain element which we need to find out whether there is a reasonableness or absurdity which is there in the data that we are looking at. And this again comes with a little bit of an open mind. And the second thing is a test of impossibility. That, say, for example, if we say that we certain things are just not possible. Uh, what example can I give you? Okay, let's say we took that example of inventory. Supposing there is a big warehouse which has, let's say, a capacity to store only, let's say, 500 television sets. Now, if the person who's making an insurance claim for the loss of those television sets by fire, if he makes a claim of, let's say, 5,000 television sets, it is possible to prove it, no, by doing the cubic feet volume storage capacity determination and then seeing the number of TV sets for which a claim has been made. The very volume will make it impossible for that person to store that many TVs. So this is also one other way we call the test of impossibility. We should apply both these tests in some of the documents. And for this purpose, what I want to do, friends, is I want to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to put a small will document on the screen. I would love to have, after 5 minutes, you go through it. If you see anything that is unreasonable or absurd or anything that is impossible, please come back to me, because all that we have discussed just now will be somewhere or the other available, and I'm sure that if you are able to spot at least 2 or 3 of those anomalies, it will mean that you have already started, doing well on this track of investigating and performing forensic audits. And I'll be happy to, if somebody gets a lot of these anomalies pointed out, I'll be happy to send a book on fraud investigation as a gift to that person. So let's say if I give about 5 minutes, I would love to have answers on the chat, and we'll see how much you people are able to really spot these red flags. So let me quickly just give you this. Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes now. This is a will. Can you find out whether there are any absurdities or whether there are any impossibilities? I'll of course give you the solution after that. Okay, just 30 seconds more. All right, friends. So I hope that you had a chance to go through this in detail. So now let me give you the solution to this. First and foremost, I'm sure all of you would have guessed that 29th of February 1958 is not a leap year. Is that correct? Yes, it was not. So this will is obviously a fabricated will. It could not have been dated 29th of February. Then the country Bangladesh, this came into existence in 1971. So this person could not have referred to this particular country in 1958. So this is the second thing. So this is also what we call the test of impossibility. Okay. Then Hotel Al Bustan, this I believe came in the year 1985 and therefore again could not have been there in 1958. Once again, a test of impossibility. Then Euros came in 1999, once again a test of impossibility. Okay. Then faxes came into existence in 1985-86. The World Trade Towers came into existence 1973. Gmail was not there. Those days there were no email exchanges, so this particular email could not have been there. It was absent in 1958. Mashriq Bank was actually Bank of Oman before it was rechristened or renamed as Mashriq Bank. And this bank itself came into existence in 1967. So this also was a test of impossibility. And this is a test of absurdity. Now, the office address is Al Alam Palace. Now, this I believe is one of the residences of the King of Oman. So, this is something absurd. We cannot imagine that the address would be that of the King of Oman. So, this is what we call a test of absurdity or test of unreasonableness. Now, all these are things which, of course, you understand large part of these relate to uh, chronological mismatches. That means things which were not there at a particular point in time. But you can have things like stocks not existing or not possible in the given area. That also becomes a test of impossibility, as I just now explained. This is a test of absurdity. When you do a combination of these two tests, in case any document that is produced before you is falsified, then this becomes one of the best ways to do an audit or to do an examination to find red flags. Now, there are couple of things which are very important. Supposing this will, let's forget that you don't even have to read it. Just think that if you, by having a look at this, the way it is, can you identify the falsification? Yes. Now, I'm sure all of you would have thought that this will has been made or prepared on a typewriter. But actually, friends, this will has not been prepared on a typewriter. There are two indications of this. One indication first, before I go into that, first is that the felt pen, what you see, that red colored signature, this was invented in 1960. So this could not have been there in 1958. Second thing is, this font of WILL, the will, is bigger than the other fonts which are given here at the bottom. The typewriter did not give you this facility of having two different font sizes on the same typewriter. And apart from that, no typewriter will give you justification on both sides. It will give you justification on the left side, but it will not give you justification on the right side. So these are also some impossibilities that we have seen and which are supposed to have been spotted by any person who was looking at this. So I do hope that some of you have been able to find some of these anomalies. This is actually nothing but a combination of all the different things that we have talked about just now, just to see if you have had an open mind, if you have had a mind where you look out for something that is out of the ordinary, friends, I can assure you that you will be able to see most of these things. Now, towards the end, friends, I would like to just say a very big thank you and a final message that, if you want to do very well in whichever field you may be, whether you are in audit, taxation, consultancy, investigation, forensic audit, whatever, it is very important, extremely important, that apart from being skilled in what you do, apart from being very talented and very proficient in what you do, it is very important to be a very understanding, patient, and a good human being. Understanding the other person's difficulties, understanding the challenges that exist will make you a better investigator or a better professional than what you are. If you are able to, do something that will make this world a better place to live in, to be able to do one good deed every day, you automatically cleanse yourself. And once you clean yourselves, your mind cobwebs, all the emotions from your mind, all the negativities from your mind will go away, and your ability to be able to see the truth, your ability to be able to perform better will be exponentially increased. And once this actually, when you are able to do this, when you are able to think clearly, you will be a fantastic and a very good investigator. So it is with this message that I tell you that if you are a good, I'm sure all of you are good human being, but if you strive to be even better, you will not only become a good human being, but you will become a fantastic professional, and you will do brilliantly in whatever work you do. So it is with this thought and with this message that I'd like to now ask, let the forum be open for people to ask me questions and take this further. Thank you. Thank you so very much. So can we stop sharing the screen, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Chetan sir, for the wonderful presentation and very informative as well. Now I would request Mr. Prabhu for formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Prabhu.
Okay, can you help me to stop sharing?
Sure.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Hassan Ahmad. On behalf of the ACFE Oman chapter, thank you, CA Chetan Dalal ji, for your sharing with us your experience and the insights of the world of frauds, and the techniques to unearth the few of them with all of us. I'm sure all our members experience great learning from your presentation. Please, I will request all of them to give him a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. We would like to have you with us and a continuous engagement with the chapter in the near future, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, but it was my pleasure.
I also, on behalf of the chapter, I also thank our sponsors, College of Banking and Financial Services, for their support and continuous patronage for all our chapter activities. I also thank
Thank
each
you.
one of you who joined this webinar live and looking forward to your continuous engagement with the chapter. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Mr. Prabhu.
thank you.
Mr. Chetan, before we wrap up the session, would you like to say something?
Yes, Chetan ji,
No, I'm
over to
just
you.
very happy. Yeah, I'm just very happy to have been here. I want to wish every participant and delegate all the very best. If there are any questions, please give them my email ID. Please give them any references to contact me. I have enough material to share with them to help them out in case there are any difficulties, in case there is any kind of assistance I can give. It will be my privilege and pleasure to be of help.
Thank you very much, Chetan ji, to have us in Oman live. But we would like to have you physically here in Oman soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So with
Thank
your
you,
permission,
and
thank
all my
you.
board members and members of the ACFE Oman. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Signing off.
Bye.
Bye.
Signing. Bye.